Welcome to today's explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into this because we are looking at something absolutely monumental today. We're exploring America's debt crisis, the collapse nobody wants to talk about. Behind all those gleaming skyscrapers on Wall Street and behind the historic, undisputed strength of the US dollar, there's a financial time bomb taking away. And the sources we're unpacking today, well, they strongly suggest the countdown has already begun. We're going to break down the realities of a system that currently owes more money than any country in human history. We're talking trillions of dollars borrowed and trillions more printed literally out of thin air. So, what actually happens when the world's most powerful economy simply can't pay its bills anymore? Let's get into it. $36 trillion. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. This isn't some accounting glitch or a spreadsheet error. This is the actual national debt of the United States right now. Our source material makes it super clear that this totally unprecedented pile of money was built up through just relentless borrowing and printing. It's created a debt burden larger than anything ever seen in human history. And we really need to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this reality before we can even begin to understand the mechanics of how it happened and honestly what it means for our future. So, Section 1. How did we get here? Okay, let's rewind a bit. Right after World War II, America became the undisputed financial center of the world. The US dollar became the global currency, everyone else trusted America, and investors trusted America. But over the decades that followed, something fundamentally shifted. The government just got caught in this continuous loop of spending way more than it brought in. We're talking about incredibly expensive wars, skyrocketing healthcare costs, and these massive financial crises that ended up requiring sweeping bailouts. But the biggest takeaway here, instead of tapping the brakes or, reevaluating the budget, Washington just kept borrowing year after year, president after president. It's been this truly bipartisan cycle where the national debt just kept climbing higher and higher until, boom, we hit that $36 trillion mark today. Which brings us to Section 2, the confidence game. Here is the truly wild part. America doesn't actually have the cash sitting in some giant vault to repay all of this debt. Not even close. So, how on earth does the system even survive? Well, the mechanics are absurdly simple, but man, are they fragile. Step 1, the government incurs debt. Step 2, to survive, they simply go out and borrow more money. And step 3, they use that newly borrowed money to pay off the old debt. That's it. It's just a continuous circular machine where new debt pays for old debt. Our sources call this the confidence game. Because when you look under the hood, this entire financial machine runs on exactly one invisible fuel: trust. As long as global investors believe America is fundamentally stable, the machine just keeps humming along. But, as we all know, confidence is a deeply fragile thing. If those investors ever lose trust, the gears shift into reverse. Interest rates shoot up, borrowing becomes exponentially more expensive, and the whole system starts to violently shake. This is exactly why stuff like the political debt ceiling debates in Washington aren't just local news, they send literal waves of panic across global markets. If America were to ever actually default, the blast radius wouldn't just be North America, it would echo across the entire planet. Moving on to Section 3, the debt spiral threat. You see, for decades, nations all around the world trusted the dollar because America looked absolutely unstoppable. But look at who's actually holding the receipts today. China owns hundreds of billions of dollars in U.S. debt. Japan owns even more than that. These nations have heavily invested their own national wealth into the American system, all based on that post-WW2 trust we talked about. But with the debt mountain getting this high, that decades-long trust is actively being stress-tested on the international stage right now. And why exactly is that trust cracking? Well, because the warning signs are quite literally flashing red today. The sources highlight 3 major cracks forming in the system right now. First up, rising inflation, which is just silently eating away at the value of the dollar. Second, exploding interest payments. As the pile of debt grows, the cost just to maintain it completely skyrockets. And third, worsening political division in Washington. It's getting harder and harder every single year to pass basic, routine budgets, let alone solve a $36 trillion crisis. Experts look at these 3 factors, and honestly, they're fearing the worst for the U.S. economy. And in economics, the worst actually has a specific name: a debt spiral. It's basically a crisis where a country's borrowing costs start rising faster than its actual economic growth. If America falls into a true debt spiral, the government's going to be backed into a corner with nothing but impossible choices left. We are talking about drastically higher taxes, massive and painful spending cuts across the board, or And this is the most dangerous option of all, just printing even more money out of thin air to cover the gap. Now for Section 4, the middle class burden. Whenever people start talking about national debt, the immediate fear is always this sudden, catastrophic global market collapse. You know, the Hollywood movie scenario where everything goes to zero overnight. But our source material makes a really crucial point here. The biggest danger might actually be something else entirely. The hidden danger is a slow decline. It's this insidious, creeping future where the dollar just slowly loses its purchasing power. It's a reality where everyday Americans are left struggling with crippling inflation on basic goods, and where younger generations inherit an economy completely drowning in debt. It makes it nearly impossible to buy a home, start a business, or even just save for the future. Because here is the hard truth. Debt doesn't just disappear. It never has. Eventually, someone always pays the price. And the really grim reality highlighted by the sources is that this burden isn't going to fall on the billionaires. It's not going to fall on massive multinational corporations. The fear is that the heavy, crushing price of this debt will land directly on ordinary citizens and the middle class, primarily through that brutal combination of inflation and heavier taxation. And that is exactly why understanding this topic matters so deeply to every single one of us. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a pretty heavy reflection from the text. No empire stays financially dominant forever. It is a dark historical precedent for sure. America's debt crisis isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about the future of the global economy, the very future of the dollar, and the future of financial power itself. Now, let's be clear. For right now, today, the system keeps going. The markets are open, investors remain relatively calm, and the confidence game is holding steady. But history is definitely looking right over our shoulder. Which brings us to our final lingering thought. If this entire massive system is built entirely on trust, the one question nobody can truly answer is this: when does the world stop believing in America's debt machine? It's a powerful question to ponder, and I'd absolutely love to hear what you guys think about it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning.